service, but I do want to share some things with you over the next few weeks. I want to talk to us about slaying giants, and I want you to turn to Nehemiah chapter 4. We'll be there in just a few moments. In Nehemiah chapter number 4, slaying giants. No series really can ever be exhaustive or all-inclusive. There's always something else that can be said, always another point that can be made, always something that can be added and or dealt with. But I do want to talk about how we can defeat the giants in our life. I want to tell you something about giants. Three things really before I get started. First of all, giants are real. Giants are real. I ain't talking about big people. I'm talking about big problems, big dilemmas, big difficulties, big challenges, big attacks, big things that come against us. My heart is to minister to people where they are. My heart is to reach people where they are. And a lot of people are facing and fighting giants. But I don't want to just face a giant. I don't want to just fight a giant. I want to slay a giant. I don't want the thing to keep existing and me keep wrestling and me keep having to struggle with it. I want that thing to fall. And so the first thing is that giants are real. I mean, there's the giant, again, not big people, but big issues, big challenges. The giant of fear, the giant of worry, the giant for some people of loneliness, the giant of depression, the giant of discouragement, and on and on and on you could go. There's financial giants, there's family giants, there's all kinds of things that we could identify. And in that way, giants are very real. They're big things, things that seem and appear bigger than us, things that can, whether they're physical or tangible or not, they're still real and identifiable. You can say, man, this is just like a giant in my life that's standing above. But the second thing, not only are giants real, giants I've found in my life and in dealing with people for as long as I have, that giants are somewhat relative. They're real, but they're relative. In other words, what is a giant to one person may seem kind of small to somebody else. Sometimes you can look at somebody and say, man, I don't know why that's such a big issue to them, but here's the thing, you not them. And you haven't been where they've been, and you haven't faced what they've faced, and you don't have the makeup that they have, and what is a giant to one may not seem very giant to another. But we got to be careful that we do not misjudge or belittle somebody else's struggle, because we're all at different places. Y'all can go downstairs too, did you? Y'all quiet in here. We're all at different places. We're all at different stages. We all deal with different things. Some of these new converts they came that Sunday, they got saved, and now and they're struggling. They're struggling. I've been in contact with several of them this week, and just trying to urge them, man, you got to get up. You got to go on. You got to push through. You got to get back to the house of the Lord. You got to connect with believers. And it's one thing and another thing. And it's a job situation, and it's this, and it's addictions. It's just whatever. That's just the reality. And of what they're dealing with, and you're trying to help them to face that and to get through that. We're all at different places and stages of our life, and so we got to be careful not to misjudge or belittle somebody else's struggle. But not only are giants real and relative, the thing that I really want to talk about is that giants are removable. They don't have to stay in your life. Where you are and what you're dealing with right now, you don't have to deal with it the rest of your life. I don't care what the enemy says. I don't care how intimidating the life seems. You don't have to deal with it the rest of your life. And so they are defeatable. They are conquerable. They are removable. They don't have to prevail. They don't have to succeed. They don't have to triumph over you, just like Goliath did. They may seem permanent, but they can be defeated. Goliath can come down. Goliath can fall. Giants can fall. So I want us to look tonight at one in particular giant that I think we all have dealt with or will deal with. And I want to look at Nehemiah chapter 4. It's interesting that Larry met the other day in his message. And so Nehemiah chapter 4 had been on my heart anyway. And we know that Nehemiah had gone back to Jerusalem to rebuild the city wall. It's really the burden that he had from the Lord. And not only was the project itself, if he'd had 100% support and cooperation and all, it would still have been a daunting task to have built this wall around the city of Jerusalem. But not only was the project itself daunting, but the opposition was very fierce and was intimidating. And so we pick up the story in Nehemiah chapter 4. I'm going to look at verse 6 through verse 10. This is what it says. So built we the wall, and all the wall was joined together unto the half thereof, for the people had a mind to work. Understand what he's saying? They was halfway there. They didn't build this thing from just rubble, from nothing. I mean, all that had been torn down. And they got the wall, and it was joined. There was no gaps. There was no holes. Up to half, it said, and that it was joined together under the half thereof, for the people had a mind to work. Verse 7, but it came to pass that when Sanballat and Tobiah, and the Arabians, the Ammonites, and the Ashdodites heard that the walls of Jerusalem were made up, and that the breaches began to be stopped, then they were very wroth. The enemy does not like you making progress. The enemy does not like you making progress. And conspired all of them together to come and to fight against Jerusalem and to hinder it. Nevertheless, I like that. You can threaten, you can say what you're going to do, you can come against me. Nevertheless, we made our prayer unto God and set a watch against them day and night because of them. And Judah said, the strength of the bearers of burdens is decayed, and there is so much rubbish, so that we are not able to build the wall. And it's something how perspective can change so quickly. The wall is halfway up, and now they're being threatened and intimidated. And it said, Judah said, the strength of the bearers of burdens is decayed, and there is much rubbish, so that we are not able to build the wall. I want to talk in about slaying giants. I want to talk about slaying the giant of discouragement. Slaying the giant of discouragement. Have you ever been discouraged? You don't have to say anything, but have you ever been discouraged? Synonyms for the word discouragement are words like dispirited, disheartened, downcast, and dejected. It may not actually be full-on depression, but they can be linked. I think one can lead to another. But it's just a low feeling, the lowness that we can sometimes sense and feel. You begin to feel very low, feel very small, feel less than. You begin to feel unaccomplished, unimportant. You begin to feel even insignificant. Like nothing you are doing matters. Nothing is making a difference. You can get to a point in discouragement where you can begin to believe that what you're doing is worthless, that what you're doing is meaningless, that what you're doing is pointless, or that if it is meaningful and if it is purposeful, you're not doing a good job at it, that somebody else could be doing a better job at it, and that your efforts are null and void and somehow less than. And you begin to get discouraged. You just lack that courage and that fortitude and that fight. And so something is missing. And so what happens is, though, that the smaller you feel, the bigger everything else looks. The smaller you feel, the bigger the obstacle looks. The smaller you feel, the bigger the responsibility seems. All of a sudden, everything else appears big because you feel small. Your job looks big. Your family responsibilities look big. That deadline you're on looks big. Everything begins to change and things begin to could get overwhelming. And honestly, discouragement can affect us in many ways, but one of the ways it can make us irrational. A discouraged person is really hard to reason with because all of a sudden that discouragement begins to affect their psyche. It begins to affect how they see things. If you look at it through this, if you look at life in the world, and even try to look at good things through discouraged eyes, it's not going to look the same. It begins to take on scales. It begins to take on shadows. It begins to look negative. It begins to take on a different perception. It begins to hinder your ability to reason correctly. It begins to restrict your ability to judge situations properly because you are discouraged with it. You are disheartened with it. You are dispirited with it. And you are ready to give up. And you are ready to quit. And you just wish you could quit. You wish there was an exit. You wish you could get off this road. You wish you could give it over to somebody else and put somebody else in the driver's seat and give somebody else the wheel and let them take it for a while. And so it can begin to give you a very skewed perspective. But all of that being true, the truth is it's still real. It's still real. It might change your perspective. You don't see things clearly or whatever. And yet discouragement is still real. It may be relative. It may take different things to get different people to different degrees or points of discouragement. But I can tell you, you keep living and you keep getting involved in stuff and you keep trying to do something meaningful and purposeful. And I'm telling you, especially with ministry and trying to make a difference for the kingdom and for God and to do things from a Christian perspective, even on your job, even on your natural job, and you try to do that, you will end up at some point being disheartened with it and discouraged with it. And so it might be relative, and yet it's real. And yet, all of that being true, it's still removable. It might be real, it might be relative, but it's still removable. You can slay the giant of discouragement. And what I want to look at, what I want to do is I want to look at a couple of different angles. I want to look at recognizing discouragement by looking at some of the factors that can contribute. And then I want to look at how to respond to it so we can hopefully bring this giant to its knees. And so let's look at recognizing discouragement. Y'all so quiet, I hope you're not discouraged. But in recognizing discouragement, several factors come in where it makes us more prone, it makes us more susceptible to it, and even can contribute to that not only being in our life, but even prevailing in our life. The first the first factor in discouragement that I'd mentioned, in no particular order, but the first one I'd mention is fatigue. And we'll look at this here in Nehemiah chapter 4. Fatigue. When you are physically tired, when you are physically fatigued, or even mentally, emotionally, however your weariness has set in, when you are tired, it begins to affect every area of your life. The Bible said this in Nehemiah chapter 4, verse 10. It said that Judah said, the strength of the bearers of burdens is decayed. In other words, man, we are exhausted. We are tired. Now, they had made great progress, but they had got to that point. I mean, things were coming along. If you would have, even their enemy took notice. You know you're making progress when the enemy says, hey, this thing's getting out of hand, because they're actually doing this. They're actually getting this done. And so all of a sudden, the wall is halfway up, joined together, and yet they reach a point where they're tired. The strength of the bearers of burdens is decayed. They had been working and working diligently. And now they are tired. A few weeks ago, I believe on Wednesday, I dealt with this and pointed out that there is a difference between being weak and being tired. Some people mistake weakness for exhaustion. I gave the illustration of the different strongman contests that you can see on television where they carry telephone poles and pull airplanes or buses or or show different feats of strength. But sometimes they'll get in the middle of a particular challenge and they'll just quit. They'll drop the pole, they take the harness off, they do whatever, and they say, I'm done. Now, they could have already pulled that or carried that for quite some distance. Now, would we look at them and say, man, they're weak? No, they're not weak, they're tired. They're tired. And so this comes into play in our life with discouragement. Because no, I don't care what you're carrying, you carry it long enough and you're going to get tired of carrying it.
Amen.
I don't care if it doesn't matter if you carry an empty Tupperware bowl. You carry it long enough, and pretty soon, you carry it long enough, and you're going to say, man, I just wish I could sit this down. My arms hurt. I'm tired. It doesn't matter what it is you're carrying. You carry it long enough, it will wear you out. Are you weak? No, I'm tired. I'm exhausted. It's wore me down. But being tired is not the same as being weak. And I've said this probably dozens of times, that tired eyes rarely see a great future. Tired eyes rarely see a great future. We went out of town for a few days last week, and we was coming back on Thursday, and I had this, tickle in the back of my throat, and I just didn't feel what sore is just, there. Friday I came on in the office, was okay, didn't feel the best, but had some things I needed to get done. Saturday felt terrible. Sunday pushed through. By the time Sunday morning was over, by the time we left, my voice was gone. Monday, I was a noodle. I couldn't do anything. There I am talking about food again. And and then little by little, I've been improved. But here's the thing: I've learned that in times like that, in areas like that, issues like that, how many knows that when you don't feel good physically, it's hard to be up spiritually. When you don't feel good physically, it's hard to be up mentally. That begins to wear on you. It begins to work on you. And I have to realize that when I'm fighting something like that and I don't feel good, that I can't just sit around and think about stuff. Because you tend to lean toward the negative. Because you already don't feel good. And it's just so easy to take the negative approach. And so, for very purposefully, I refused to think about certain things that had been frustrating, because the tendency is that you begin to blow it out of proportion. And then you feel bad not only physically, but now mentally and emotionally. And it wears on you spiritually. And I told Vance, I'm out of my rhythm. I don't feel good. I couldn't sleep well. On and on and on. But I was like, but you just got to fight through it. And you got to realize that there's susceptible times. And when I don't feel good anyway, it's harder for me to think good, to talk good, to see good. And so fatigue is often a contributing factor to discouragement, which is sometimes why the most spiritual thing you can do is take a nap. I say it's spiritual. Some people master this every Sunday morning. Anyway, I didn't look at nobody when I said it. Of course, you may be asleep right now. I don't know, so you look here when I said it. But fatigue, it wears on you. Second contributing factor is frustration. Man, if you're frustrated already and then you're fatigued, it sure is easier to get frustrated when you're fatigued. But Nehemiah's story reveals that, watch this, that sometimes our adversary, his intention, this is so helpful to me, it's been so helpful to me. Sometimes the enemy is not out to destroy right off the bat. Sometimes he takes great patience and strategy to just come and frustrate you. It's not always, I'll just knock you down and stomp you in the ground. No, there are times that the attack is to frustrate. Well, watch this. In Ezra chapter 4, verse 5, Israel's adversaries, the Bible said, hired counselors against them to frustrate their purpose. That the enemy said, we don't have to really defeat him if we can just frustrate him. If we can frustrate him, we can distract him. If we can frustrate him, we can throw him off course. If we can frustrate him. How many knows a frustrated person is an irritable person? Don't look at your neighbor. And a frustrated person is an irritable person. They're upset more easily. They can move from expectation to exasperation in a heartbeat. They're upset more easily. And it can happen to anybody. But when your adversary is set and focused on launching an all-out attack to frustrate you, you have to be extra vigilant that you recognize what he's doing so that you do not allow it to overwhelm you. Because frustration, look what it said. It said in Ezra 4 and 5, they hired counselors against them to frustrate their purpose. In other words, frustration in that attack mode is a preventative mechanism. In other words, it's done to try to keep you from making forward progress. It's trying to throw you off your purpose, get you distracted. It's for the purpose of hindering, of holding you back, of hampering your progress. Because if he can frustrate you, if he can frustrate you, and he can get you off centered and off focus, man, now you got fatigue, now you got frustration. Then you kind of can deal with the next part, which really we see in Nehemiah 4 verse 10 again. And that is the sense of failure. Not just fatigue and frustration, but failure. Look what he said. The strength of the bearers of burdens is decayed, and there is much rubbish, so that we are not able to build. You know what? We just can't do it. I just can't do it. We're just failures. We just can't get it together. We just can't do this. And so we just can't do it. We're tired. We're not getting anywhere. We just can't do it. The interesting thing is they were doing it. See how discouragement can affect your insight, your perception, your perspective? They were making progress. The wall was being built. And sometimes when we're fatigued and frustrated, our feelings begin to misguide us. Our eyes begin to get clouded to what is actually being accomplished. Can I give you, we know this stuff, but can I just kind of give you a reminder here that the enemy does not attack people all the time who are failing or failures or who are bystanders and who are not doing anything profitable. He attacks those who are moving forward. He attacks those who are active. He attacks those who are achieving. He is attacking those who are working to accomplish a goal. But we can move into a sense of failure. Whether we're failing or not is not the issue. If you feel like it, your feelings get out of whack. And your feelings begin to control. You begin to feel like a failure. And what happens is he can do it to a point to where he magnifies your feelings over the facts. And your feelings look more real than the facts. The wall is halfway up. And they've done it in record time. Remember, they built the whole wall in 52 days. And yet, less than 2 months, they built the wall around the city. That's awesome, people. That's just amazing. But here's the thing. They could see it. Their feelings look more real than the facts. Because they were fatigued. They were frustrated. They felt like failures. And then, of course, another factor would be that it drives them to fear. The verse we didn't read, the next verse, verse 11, it says, "And our adversaries said, they shall not know neither see, till we come in the midst among them and slay them, and cause the work to cease." In other words, they said, listen, what we're planning and what we're plotting, they're not even going to see it coming. And we're going to rise up against them, and we're going to wipe them out, and we're going to cause, look what it is, cause the work to cease. Do you want to know what the enemy's after? Right there's the answer. And cause the work to cease. He's trying to put a stop to the positive kingdom contribution that you make in this world. He does not want the kingdom going forward. And so
it says they will not know it nor see it till we come in the midst of them and slay them and cause the work to cease. I realize that the enemy loves to use anything to increase your anxiety level. He loves to heighten your level of apprehension. And if he can move you from simple anxiety or apprehension into absolute terror and fear and dread, then what he does is he succeeds in sabotaging your purpose, your goal, your progress. It may be fear of failure. It may be fear of loss. It may be fear of rejection. It may be the fear of what people will think. It could be all kinds of fears. But what's being described here is the fear of the unknown. They said, oh, they're not going to know it till it's too late. There's always the unknown. I mean, you don't know what tonight is going to hold.
That's right.
The boy in Pulaski yesterday was dropped off and was walking across to the high school. And a van struck him. Just on his way to school. He got hit by my understanding is he got hit by the side mirror. Saw a picture of him later through some people that we know that know him. I mean, just his face, you can just tell the impact. I mean, it's just amazing that we don't know. But we can't sit around and fear the unknown. We can't fret over what the enemy's going to try. We can't just take all that heart and let it increase our anxiety level and be apprehensive and anxious and all of that. The adversary said they're not going to see it coming, but it's coming. We're going to take them down. So when there is one or more of these symptoms, when there is fatigue, when there is frustration, when there are feelings of failure, and even when there's fear, then either discouragement is present or discouragement is on the horizon. So what do we do? What do we do with discouragement? Here's what we do. We respond. We've learned to recognize it or recognize some of the symptoms or contributing factors, but what you have to do is learn how to respond. So let me give you a few things on responding, and I'll let you go. When you respond to discouragement, again, not just an emotional reaction, but a response. Calculated, measured response. I'm going to do something about this. I'm going to be vigilant about this. I'm not going to let this overwhelm me. Here's my plan to combat or counteract the discouragement that's coming against me. Now listen, I'm not going to tell you anything that you don't already know. But many times when we're discouraged, it's necessary, the necessity is to be reminded, because discouragement can put blinders on us. And we kind of lose sight of things that we know. So I'm not going to give you revelation, just repeat information of things that we already know. But that doesn't mean it's not significant, not important, and not powerful, and not effective. As one man said, it's not that we don't know what to do. Sometimes it's that we don't always do what we know. And when you do what you know, it begins to be effective and be powerful. Just knowing it isn't enough if you don't put it into practice. And so how do we respond to discouragement? Well, when you begin to sense all those things coming against you, you got to do what Nehemiah and the people of Israel did. First thing they did is they cried out to God. They cried out to God. That seems so simple, but it's so significant. Now here's what I like about these responses. Is in the verses that we read, we'll look at a couple that we didn't read, but in the verses that we read, these responses are intermingled amidst all these symptoms. In other words, they didn't let all these symptoms pile up and then say, you know what, I better do something about this. What they did was, when they would recognize one thing, they began to respond to it. And then something else come against, and they responded to it. And then something else come against, and they responded to it. Because if you just sit back and take it and let it get to the discouragement get to a point of desperation, you have a much more difficult time getting out of it and making your way beyond it, because it's piled up so much. It's like laundry. Anyway. Anyway. What I love about this is they didn't wait until it all got piled up. They responded. In other words, you have to respond all along. You cannot let it go unchecked and build up, because it can very, very quickly get overwhelming. And so look at Nehemiah chapter 4, verse 4, and then let's look at verse 9. Verse 4, here's Nehemiah. It says, "Hear, O our God, for we are despised, and turn their reproach upon their own head, and give them for a prey in the land of captivity." And then we read about all of the enemies that began to be angry at the progress they were making. Look at verse number 9 in chapter 4 of Nehemiah. It says, "Nevertheless, we made our prayer unto God, and set a watch against them day and night because of them." In other words, we did not try to approach this and defeat this without God's help. We did not try to deal with discouragement on our own. We did not try to just pick ourselves up and just get ourselves going and self-motivate. All that's important. All of that has its place. But they said the first thing we did is we cried out to God. We invited God to get involved in the situation. We say it so much that it just sounds like a Christian cliche. And when pastors say it, when preachers say it, when teachers say it, when other believers say it, we just kind of shrug it off. Yeah, I know that. I know. When we say to pray, listen, we say it so much, but the truth is, you cannot underestimate the power of prayer. You cannot underestimate how important it is in the process, not just of a project, but of life itself. It's vitally important. Let me give you something about prayer. Okay? Prayer, maybe if we see it like this, maybe it helps somebody's perspective and their practice of prayer. Here's what prayer is to me. Prayer is inviting God's intervention in your situation. Let me say it another way. That prayer, your prayer, is your personal invitation to God to get involved in your situation. When you pray, you are sending God a personal invitation saying, "Hey God, I'm having this problem. Would you come get involved? Would you come get involved in this? Hey, I've got this family crisis. Here's your invitation, God, to intervene." That's what prayer is. Man, when I pray, I'm inviting God to intervene. I'm inviting God to be involved. I am inviting God. Even I must get to a point where I say, "God, you know what? I can't do this. I can't fix this. I can't control this. I can't do this on my own. God, this is not just your invitation to get involved. This is your invitation for you to take control." It's the process. But it should be that invitation to get God involved in your situation. They cried out to God. They talked to God about it. But that's not all they did. Something else that they did is they continued the work that God had given them to do. Not only did they cry out to God, they continued the work that God had given them to do. They cried, but they continued. Look at verses 4 through 6. It says this, and we just read verse 4, "Hear, O our God, for we are despised, turn their reproach on their own head, give them for a prey in the land of captivity, and cover not their iniquity, and let not their sin be blotted out from before thee, for they have provoked thee to anger before the builders." They're talking about the enemy that's attacking them. And look what it said, "So built we the wall." We prayed, but we kept on building. We prayed, but we kept on working. So let me give it to you like this. Don't, understand, hear my heart in it. Don't stop and pray. Pray and keep going. Don't pray and stop. Don't stop and pray. Pray and keep going. Pray while you keep going. Pray while you work. They said, "Hey, we're going to pray, but we're going to keep working too." They were just praying, and then said, "So built we the wall." And all the wall was joined together unto the half thereof, for the people had a mind to work. In other words, you continue the work that God is giving you to do. You pray while you keep working. You pray and keep striving. You pray and you keep walking. You pray and you keep running. Even if you look over to Nehemiah chapter 6, verse 3, it says, and I sent messengers unto them, saying, I am doing a great work, so that I cannot come down. Why should the work cease whilst I leave it and come down to you? He's like, man, I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep at it. I'm going to push through. Come on. While they were building the wall, they had hit a wall, but they said, we got to break through the wall. The wall, the internal wall, so they could finish building the physical wall. And so, yeah, do we have to pause and reconsider and reconfigure some things from time to time? Yes. But you don't stop. You don't quit. You don't throw in the towel. You don't let discouragement talk you down. You keep on going. And if you can often just press through, you can break through that wall. You can catch a second wind. And you can just keep on going. So you cry out to God. You continue the work that God has given you. Listen, make sure it's the work that God's given you to do. A lot of times we get discouraged because we took things on ourselves that God didn't give us to do. We do things people give us to do, things we feel pressured to do. Some things, yes, we may have to do. But you got to make sure that you're not spreading yourself so thin in things that don't contribute to your divine purpose and accomplishing what God wants. You only got so much time, so much energy, so much resource. You only got so much. And if you use it all up doing things that He really didn't give you to do, then what do you have left for the things that He does give you to do? That's tough. That is tough. Well, sometimes you got to say no to some good things so you can say yes to some God things. And when I stand before Him, I don't want to just be one that said yes to good things. I want to have said yes to God things. Where He says, you're good, a faithful servant. And so you continue in the work. Another thing they did that we got to do, not only cry out to God, not only continue the work that God's given us to do, but then you concentrate on the big picture. You cry out, you continue the work, but then you concentrate on the big picture. Look what He says in verse 13 and 14. Therefore I set in the lower places behind the wall, and on the higher places I even set the people after their families, with their swords, their spears, their bows. And I looked and rose up and said unto the nobles, to the rulers, to the rest of the people, be not ye afraid of them. Remember the Lord, which is great and terrible. That is, He's great and awesome. And fight for your brethren, your sons and your daughters, your wives and your houses. In other words, hey guys, this is not just about building a wall. There's a whole bigger picture here. This is about our future. This is about our families. And for us, there's so much more at stake here. Yeah, we feel discouraged sometimes. Yeah, we want to throw in the towel. But there's so much more at stake. It's so much bigger than the immediate. And so the enemy loves for us to focus on the immediate when God has often called us to work and fight for the ultimate. Now, how many knows that it takes longer to accomplish the ultimate than it does to tackle the immediate? If you judge a project or a vision or a process by where it is right now, you can quickly lose sight of where you're trying to get it, of the ultimate goal. And you lose your motivation to continue. And when they were rebuilding the wall, Nehemiah said, you know what, I can't focus on where the wall is now. We got to remember where it needs to be, where we want to get it finished up to. And he had to instill into the people that much more was at stake here than just whether a wall was being built or not. It was not only about the reproach against them, but it's about their susceptibility to attack of the enemy. We got to put up barriers. We got to make sure that we're protected. It was a matter of destiny. It was a matter of the future of their families. And when we find ourselves discouraged, we have to remember our why. Why are we doing this? Why was I involved in this to start with? Why do we have to continue this? Why must we finish this? Why must we not quit? We have to concentrate on the big picture. I got to hurry. The two more things. First, another thing, the third thing, is not only cry out to God, continue the work, concentrate on the big picture, but then we should claim the encouragement of God's promises. And what about claiming the encouragement of God's promises? What about Psalm 46, 1 through 3, that says God is our refuge and our strength? He is a present help in time of trouble. Therefore, I will not fear what man will do. I mean, what about things like that where God assures us that He's with us? Not just in good times, but in challenging times, in difficult times, in bad times. That He's with us. That He's for us. What about Isaiah 43, verse number 2, that says something like this, that when you go through the waters, I'll be with you. When the fire rages against you, you'll not be burned. I mean, no matter what comes against you, man, I got you. That's what He said, I got you. I'm going to get you through this. You begin to claim those promises as your own. God, you said you wouldn't fail me. God, you said that this fire would not burn me. You said these waters would not drown me. You said that you would not leave me in the midst of it. And I claim that, and I find encouragement from the promises of God. What about Galatians 6 and 9? That says not to be weary in well-doing. For you shall reap in due season if you faint not. Man, don't let yourself faint. Fan yourself with the power and the breeze of the promises of God. Go on, just fan yourself. Just let me catch my second wind. Let me get some word. Let me get some promises built back up in me. And say, God, help me to do this for your glory. So you claim the encouragement of God's promises. And then, finally, this may seem really odd, and you got to be careful with it. But you not only cry out to God, continue the work that He's given you to do, concentrate on the big picture, claim the encouraging promises of God. But you can also do this. You can also help carry someone else's burden. You can help somebody else. And then you got to be careful about doing this, because if you're helping them, but it's really about you and not for them, you can create unnecessary issues. Plus, as we said here the other week in our talking about the will of God, motives do matter to God. Okay? However, I've found in my life this to be true. Sometimes the best way to help yourself is to reach out to somebody else. Sometimes the best way to help yourself is to reach out to somebody else. I promise you this. Somebody's struggling worse than you. Somebody's facing it harder than you. It doesn't minimize what you're going through. What it does, it helps you to recalibrate your perspective. And it lets us remember, too, that our life has to be about more than just us. Us being here is not just about us. Church is not just about us. What we do here is not just about us. It's about so much more than that. And the Spirit of the Lord has really been driving something home to me, and you'll probably be hearing it in the weeks to come. But it really could be summed up like this. Make sure that your world is bigger than you. Make sure that your world is bigger than you. Make sure that you are not the center of everything. Make sure that you're helping other people and reaching out to other people. You may not be able to help everybody. It may not be, impossible. It may not be even right. But you can help somebody. If you'll reach out and you'll help them carry the man, all these people begin to work, and they begin to do their part to not leave some who were working on the wall while others just kind of took it easy and chilled out and said, no, we're done, we're finished. No. Man, let's everybody stand in our place and let's help somebody else. Listen, sometimes when your section of the wall and section of life and purpose in life, when that seems overwhelming, man, if you just look around and try to help somebody else, you'd be amazed. And this is what Galatians talks about fulfilling the law of Christ by not just bearing your own burdens,
but by bearing the burdens of others, by helping one another. And so as we do all that, we begin to combat discouragement. Because there's been times where I've began to assess. I've heard many pastors say, man, I just thought I was in a rough time until I talked to so-and-so. I just thought I was having difficulty until I talked to so-and-so. Or I've heard people that work in the secular world say, man, I thought my workplace was bad, and then I heard about this place, and I was like, okay, my place is not so bad. And sometimes we just need something to give us a little bit of perspective. But here's the thing. As we cry out to God and keep at it, concentrate on the big picture, and claim the promises of God, it empowers and enables us to help other people. And that's really what our life has to be about. What contribution do we make? And that's what they were all doing. It wasn't just for them. It was a broader contribution that they were making. As we do that, it empowers us to stand against and resist the discouragement that can so easily come against us. And if we can do these things and implement these things, I believe we can slay this giant, bring it to its knees, and we can defeat it. And we'll be equipped, because as that thing begins to come back, we can say, no, I'm not going to be susceptible where I was before. I got a game plan. I'm going to cry out to God. I'm going to keep on working. I'm going to push through. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to look at the big picture, not just right now. I'm going to fill my heart with the promises of God. And man, I'm going to not just focus on me and woe is me. I'm going to find somebody and try to help and reach out and know that life is about more than just me. As we do, that discouragement can fall, and we can go on and live the life that God's called us to. Father, we're so thankful for your goodness, your grace, your love, your mercy. We also thank you for your word tonight. We ask, God, that you would minister in a special way. That, God, you would take this word. That, Father, you would help us to do just that, to make it a game plan. That it's not just a word. It's not just a message. Not just filling time. But, God, if we'll take this to heart, Father, there's going to come a time in our life when we're going to need this. There's going to come a time in our life when we will have wished that we would have said, you know, I should have took a little more care in what was said, because I got to know how to combat this discouragement. Because, Lord, it's not just all mental or emotional. There are spiritual elements involved. And Father, so we just ask that you would take this word and you'd massage it deep into our hearts. Let it become a part of us. As James said, let it be engrafted in us. And let it be fruitful and productive and effective. And Father, for what you do in us, we will give you the glory. And we will give you the praise. And we will give you the honor and the thanks. And, oh Lord, would you watch over your people. Watch over us. Keep us. Watch us, oh God, as we go throughout this week. Bring us back the next appointed time. That we may worship. That we may glorify your name. Lord, we'll love you, we'll honor you, and we'll praise you. For Lord, we ask all that we do in the mighty name above all names. In Jesus' name we pray. And everybody said amen. 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 Appreciate you being in the house of the Lord tonight. Again, if you're going to help us next Wednesday with our trunk or treat, no matter what role you're playing, if you can stay and just for a few moments, we want to make sure we're all on the same page and such. So if you could stay, that would be very much appreciated. Appreciate you being here. Thank the Lord for you. Pray you have a blessed rest of the week. Let's pray for one another. Let's come back to the house of the Lord Sunday, ready to worship the Lord. Would you stand with us tonight? Turn around, high five somebody, wave at them, smile at them. Be nice.